we need to break down what the College Football Playoff Committee just put out, because that was atrocious. I mean, the most offensive thing to me is BYU is right behind SMU. It doesn't make any sense. You're going to honor the head-to-head. Ole Miss is at 9, Georgia at 10. And then you put BYU at 14 when they beat SMU 18-15. That's SMU's only loss. Just flip them. That's all you have to do. I mean, I don't understand. I don't understand that one. What else are you seeing from these rankings, Max?
It's just, I mean, it's the same old story, man, every year. I think all we want from the committee is one, transparency. How are you ranking these teams? Because the logic, it never makes sense. So that's the second reason. The consistency in how they rank these teams, there's none of it. Notre Dame, for example, one loss team, probably the worst loss of any of the teams ranked in the top 12, losing to NIU at home, right?
Yep.
That's the worst loss, right? Which, okay, they're still a one-loss team, but they have Miami, a one-loss team, behind. So it goes Notre Dame at 6, Alabama at 7, Miami at 8. That's one loss Notre Dame, two loss Bama, one loss Miami, and they go. Alabama is a two-loss team, but we like their wins more than Miami, so we're going to rank them ahead of Miami. But we don't like them more than Notre Dame, even though Notre Dame best win right now is Texas A&M first week of the season, and they have the worst loss in the country. It just doesn't make any sense. I think all we want is consistency and transparency from the committee, and we just once again don't get it.
Yeah, other things that kind of red alert here. Boise State is now technically the 4 seed if we were to start tomorrow. BYU, Colorado, and ASU and Iowa State, the 4 teams that have a chance to win the Big 12. BYU is 14, Colorado 16, Arizona State 21, and Iowa State 22. And Boise State's up there at 12. So you got to wonder, especially if Arizona State beats BYU and you get a 2-loss Big 12 champ, do they get the 5 seed? And also, if Army wins out, that means they beat Notre Dame, they beat a ranked Tulane team, and they beat a Navy team who is a quality team. They'd close out with 3 really, really strong wins. And that would put them at 12-0 or 13-0 because they have one more game. So they'd be 13-0 and they'd have 2 ranked wins against Notre Dame, Tulane. Well, do they jump that Big 12 team? Because that's a better resume than any team that the Big 12 is going to be able to put out is going to have, unless BYU runs the table. And then you're looking at well, if they don't put them over Boise State and they don't put them over Army, well, then the Big 12 champ could be left out. I was reading the rules because I was confused. Does the Big 12 get an automatic bid? No, it's just the top 5 conference champions. So there's, slim to none chance, but keep your eye out. The Big 12 champion might not make the playoff at all. That's what I got from these rankings, because having Tennessee, SMU, Boise State all ranked ahead of BYU shows that the committee has absolutely zero respect for the Big 12.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. I I just want to know, how do you rank teams? They honor head-to-head for some matchups, oh, Ole Miss is ahead of Georgia. They have the same record, but Ole Miss beat Georgia, so we're going to rank them ahead of Georgia. SMU, BYU, they have the same record. SMU lost to BYU, but is ranked ahead of them. It just doesn't make any sense. So it doesn't necessarily matter, given that, it really just comes down to the very last ranking. But in some ways it does, man. This is what you're saying, if the college football playoffs started tomorrow, this is what the teams would be. And I see a lot of errors in it. So overall, I think disappointing to see from the committee. And it's just the same old story every single year.
Yeah, Tennessee, they're going to need one upset to get in. They're at the 11 spot, which would put them out. They'd be at 13 if the playoffs did start that way. They're going to have some chances there. You got to wonder, they already have Indiana at number 5. They're behind 1-loss Penn State, behind 1-loss Texas, behind 1-loss Ohio State. Now, the Ohio State will work itself out, right? Indiana's still got to play Ohio State. But if they lose that game, and particularly if they lose that game badly, they just took undefeated BYU and dropped them all the way to 14. So do they put them behind a 2-loss Tennessee team who would have a better resume? I mean, I don't think Indiana they don't have any ranked wins. Do you have that strength of schedule number on you?
So of the top 15 teams in the CFP right now, Indiana strength of schedule wise would have the worst at 106. That's across all college football teams. So they're pretty far down there as far as strength of schedule goes. That'll go up as soon as they play Ohio State. But currently their best win is probably against Michigan at home, 20-15. So we're really not talking about a team that has that great of a resume. They've just handled every single team, every single kind of middle of the pack to lower end Big Ten team that they've played.
Yeah, and like you said, that Michigan game was close, really close, and they looked abysmal in that second half. So, some of these things I don't actually have a problem with. I think Tennessee's a better team than BYU. I'm fine with them being ahead of BYU. It's the lack of consistency that I see throughout the rankings. Like, what are you looking at? And I feel like they don't explain themselves maybe as well as they should. I think they try and keep it behind closed doors. And at the end of the day, a lot of these things will sort themselves out. If Notre Dame loses, they're out. If they win, they're in. But seeding is really important this year. It's not, you play whoever you play in a neutral site game. The difference between the 8 and the 9 seed is who's going to play at whose house. Is Ole Miss going to Penn State or is Penn State going to Ole Miss? That's a massive, massive difference. So seeding, much more important than it was previously, particularly because, when you start debating who's 11 and who's 13, that those can be really, really close. It can be a couple of 2-loss teams who have not played each other or even have any common opponents. And, this does not make me trust the committee anymore.
No. And unfortunately, they have the power to do so, right? It's really never been who's necessarily the most deserving. It's always been who the committee views as the best teams. That's what they're looking for. They're looking for the best possible matchups to bring in the most possible views and the most revenue for the NCAA. So unfortunately, that's how it's structured. The committee gets to decide exactly how this goes, and they don't have to be transparent. They can. We saw it last year with FSU being an undefeated Power Five conference championship and being left out because the committee said, eye test, Bama's a lot better. I think we all agree that Bama was better, but still, you're basically saying that it doesn't matter what you do. It matters how we view you, essentially. So it's just the state of college football. I'm not a huge fan of it, how they have the committee set up. Hopefully we see a change sometime, but I don't think we will anytime soon.
Yeah, I got one more note here. South Carolina's creeping up. They're at 18. Now, you might say
Come
3-loss
on,
team.
South
You
Carolina.
don't need to watch them. There is a world where Texas A&M beats Texas and wins the SEC title game, and Clemson makes the ACC title game and then loses to South Carolina, which wouldn't knock them out because that's not a conference game. So Clemson makes the ACC title game. Both of those teams win. South Carolina would be sitting at 9-3 with victories over the SEC champion and the ACC champion in Texas A&M and Clemson. Their losses would be 2 points to Bama, 3 points to LSU, and I mean they kind of got smoked by Ole Miss. But once again, slim to none. But if you're a Gamecocks fan, not all hope is lost. So that was kind of my last thing, little sleeper team there at the end. You got anything else on these rankings, man?
No.
All right, cool. Well, anger index off the chart. This is terrible. But I'm sure we'll just get angry every week until we see the final rankings, and hopefully they're not too
this is
bad.
the first, I think, have we had two, this is our third week of rankings now from the CFP. And
Yep.
for the first 2 weeks, we really didn't have any issues with it because it was pretty clear who were the top 12 teams. But quite a bit of shaking up happened this past week, and the committee finally had some tough decisions, and we definitely do not agree with these decisions.
No, we definitely do not.